Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be back in Polk County. You know, I thought we were doing the bill signing. My brief here says that Governor is supposed to perform the song Sweet Florida. I don't know if you guys want me to do that, so we'll just go ahead and we'll pass on that. But we're here with a lot of great folks. I want to thank Sheriff Grady Judd for hosting us. I also want to thank Attorney General Ashley Moody for being here with us, Senate President Wilton Simpson, Speaker Chris Sprowls. We have Representatives Bell, Burton, and Killebrew, and then Senator Kelly Stargel. And we've got a number of folks from law enforcement. A lot of people from Polk County Sheriff's Office are here. We got a lot of police chiefs from communities in Polk County and I think beyond. So I want to thank them for being here as well. We have been talking about that we're a law and order state. We said that we back the folks that wear the uniform. And I think that it's one thing to say that, and honestly, just saying that was more than what a lot of people have been doing over the past couple years. I mean, just the fact that you're willing to come up and say, we support law enforcement, we're not going to demagogue them, we're not going to watch, sit idly by if the media or politicians smear them. So that is really important, that moral support. I think people appreciate that. But, you know, we're not just talking in Florida. We're putting our money where our mouth is. We're stepping up to the plate and doing things legislatively that are making a huge, huge difference. And so today is yet another example of things that we're doing that's really, really path-breaking. And so if you remember 2020, and this was not the beginning of this because we've seen this for a number of years, but you had a concerted movement around the country to go after law enforcement. Police budgets were slashed in places like Seattle and Minneapolis and New York. And that had a disastrous impact on public safety in those areas. I mean, partially just because, you know, you need to have a strong force to be able to maintain public safety, but also the acts of doing that when you're defunding or taking funding away, that sends a signal to the people who wear the uniform that they don't have the support of the community. And so morale has been incredibly low in many places throughout this country over the last few years. And I think Florida has stood as an antidote to that. We've stood for this being a noble profession. You know, we want to support the folks who are protecting us, but we also know that if you don't do that, if you go down the road that we've seen in many of these other jurisdictions, you are absolutely going to see way more criminal activity. You will see less public safety. And ultimately, you know, there are folks who have been victims of crime all throughout this country who probably would not have been victimized had they just stood by law enforcement, funded the agencies, and weren't indulging in a lot of this nonsense. And that's sad because a lot of those were probably avoidable crimes that were really a result of really terrible policy. So we never went into that. We passed HB3 last year, and in that bill it says we're not letting local government defund law enforcement. If they try to do it, we will put the money back in from the state level. And I think that that's something very, very important. So that's a sword of Damocles hanging over any local government that if they wanted to think this was a good idea, they know they wouldn't be able to get away with it. And so that was really important to do. Had other places done that and nip this in the bud, they would be a lot they'd be a lot better off than they are right now. So we were proud of that. We were also proud as people were taking money away from law enforcement, we did $1,000 bonuses from the state to every single sworn law enforcement officer, every firefighter, every EMT in the state of Florida in 2021. And that was meaningful. And it's always nice to get $1,000, but I think people just looked at it and said, you know, it shows that the Florida legislature and the governor support us, and people really appreciated that. So I think that was really good for morale, and I'm happy to report, thanks to the legislature answering the call, we haven't approved the budget yet, but I have approved this provision of the budget that does for 2 years in a row will do $1,000 bonuses for all sworn law enforcement, fire, and EMTs and paramedics in the state of Florida. So that's going to be meaningful, especially that we did it last year, kind of saying, hey, thank you. And we are still saying thank you with this, but part of it is a necessity for these bonuses, you know, with Biden inflation and all these other problems that people are having to contend with. You know, we want to make sure that the folks, our first responders, are able to make ends meet with gas costs, groceries, all these things that have really been escalating at levels we have not seen in this country for 4 decades. So I'm glad we were able to do it. And then today, to be here signing this bill. is something that we announced that we wanted to do it last year, leading into this legislative session for 22. We did it in the fall of 21, put down a marker saying this was something that was important. And I'm happy to say not only did what we said we wanted come across the finish line, the legislature put things in here that we never even proposed, but have made it even much better. So I want to thank both the Speaker, the Senate President for taking this issue on seriously, understanding that strategically our state has an opportunity to really be ground zero for highly qualified folks in the law enforcement profession. We're providing the type of environment that you would want to pursue this profession in. And, a lot of these agencies, Grady's got, a few dozen vacancies for officers. We were just in Brevard County. We also had the Seminole County Sheriff. They're similar. So there's a need for folks, especially as our state continues to grow. And so what better time to do these incentives to tell anyone out there in our country, if you're being mistreated, you're not being supported, whether you're on the West Coast, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Chicago, any of these places, if you're qualified and you can fill a spot here, we're going to get your back. And so we're getting your back in the form of a $5,000 signing bonus for any qualified person who's new to the profession in Florida. That, of course, means someone who's leaving California or Minneapolis or any of those places. But it also means younger people in Florida who have not served in law enforcement. This is a good incentive for them to enter the profession. And so I think it's a signal to them, to our Floridians who are looking to see what they want to do as they get older, that law enforcement's a noble calling. Law enforcement is something that's integral to the well-being and safety of our communities. And if you choose to wear the uniform and put on a badge, you're going to have an opportunity to serve an awful lot of people. And sometimes that is, the typical police work, and sometimes that calls you to do some extraordinary things. We just awarded, we recognized at our last cabinet meeting, a trooper for the Florida Highway Patrol who saved potentially dozens of people in a race when there was this car that was out of control, and she had to run into the car basically with her car, really dangerous collision, put herself at risk, but that ended up saving a lot of lives. And so we see that time and time again, people stand up. So I think the $5,000 is just important as a matter of incentive, because people coming here, they're going to be able to get that. Obviously, there's challenges across the country with these inflation rates, and so that will help soften the blow there. But I think also just it's a signal that in Florida that this is meaningful work and that we're going to support what you do. And that you're going to be valued. And look, not just by the governor and by the legislature, which is very important. You go to communities throughout Florida. You don't even need to mention Polk. Of course, here, the community rallies to the folks that wear the uniform. They know how important it is. And so in Florida, yes, the policy is supportive of law enforcement. And that's important because bad policy can be deadly. But there's an organic, genuine appreciation from Floridians to the folks who work to keep us safe. And so I think this bonus is part of that. And I think there's no one else in the country that's doing what we're doing. But this bonus isn't the only thing that is in this bill. We are creating in this bill the Florida Law Enforcement Academy Scholarship Program, and that covers tuition, fees, and up to $1,000 of additional education expenses for trainees enrolled in a law enforcement officer basic training recruit program. If you think about it, we've done great things in Florida with things like a Bright Future Scholarship. If you want to go University of South Florida, University of Florida, our state universities, you're able to do that, and that's great. But what about folks that are going in this direction? We want to make sure that they have an easy pathway to do it. So I think this is really, really important. It also creates in the bill $1,000 of equivalency training costs that we will reimburse up to $1,000 of equivalency training costs for certified law enforcement officers who relocate to Florida. We don't want them to be deterred by having to pay a lot of money because of red tape, which is unfortunately with bureaucracies, sometimes that could happen. This would apply not only to out-of-state state law enforcement officers, but also members of our military special operations community. So people who are in naval special warfare, people who are Army special forces, those types of folks will be able to come and avail themselves of those reimbursements. And so we're happy about that. We're also happy that the bill exempts veterans from taking the basic skills test as a prerequisite to entering law enforcement officer basic recruit training program. We're also making dependent children of law enforcement officers eligible for Florida's Family Empowerment Scholarship. And so if you're somebody that's in law enforcement, you have a son or daughter in a K through 12 school, regardless of your income, because, you know, we have people that work here at the Sheriff's Department and maybe their spouse works somewhere else, their combined income would likely exceed what would be needed to qualify for this program, which is generally targeted at low-income families. So you're going to be eligible just by basis of your employment. And so if you want to be able to exercise that school choice option and go to the school of your choice for K-12, you're going to be able to do that. And I want to thank the speaker for thinking about this and putting this in. And I think that this is going to make a big difference. And also along those lines, you know, what the House and Senate were able to do was say, you know, we've got all these other problems in Florida. You have the need to keep the criminal element at bay, and these folks are on the front lines of that. But we also have problems of making sure that we're able to find homes for kids in foster care. And so what better community to reach out to help us than our law enforcement community? And the First Lady has worked very hard on this to try to increase adoptions across the state through her initiatives. So this legislation will provide law enforcement officers who adopt a child from within our state child welfare system $10,000 benefit and a $25,000 benefit for adopting a child with special needs. And so I think that this is a way to address a problem with the child welfare and increasing adoptions, but to harness a lot of the people that are in good standing in our community to do so. So I want to commend the House and Senate for including that in there. I think that was something that was really significant. And then you also have law enforcement related education now initiatives starting in high schools. Each school district will be encouraged to establish public safety telecommunication training programs and law enforcement explorer programs in public schools. And I think part of that is, you know, there's some people that have certain views about law enforcement, and those views are simply inaccurate. And you get firsthand exposure, you're able to see, and then you can form an actual valid judgment based on the actual facts and not what somebody may be telling you. And so I think it's a way to increase trust across the community, and I think that that's something that was really good. So all in all, I think this is a home run. I don't think there's a single piece of legislation anywhere in the country that would be able to match this so far in 2022 in terms of showing a commitment, a state showing its commitment to the men and women of law enforcement. So my hat's off to the folks who were a part of passing it. And, you know, we'll sign it officially here in just a minute, but we're going to hear from a lot of folks who've been involved in supporting these efforts, starting with the Attorney General of the state of Florida, Ashley Moody. And she promised me if I didn't sing the song that she would sing it. So.
No, that would be an April Fool's joke if I sang the song. You would be terrified. You know, I think this is the most perfect location to announce this bill. This is a pro-law enforcement county with the man of law enforcement, Sheriff Grady Judd, standing here, the man that truly supports law and order and assures those in this community that he will always do so, even when criticism rises to the mainstream and sometimes when doing the right thing and the popular thing may not be the same thing. You can count on this man to do the right thing. And I am so proud of what our legislature has done this year as it pertains to law enforcement and supporting them and recruiting them, not just as the Attorney General who serves as our state's top cop, but as the wife of a law enforcement officer. This is much needed. We are facing national shortages among our law enforcement ranks. 9 out of 10 agencies say they have staffing shortages of some kind. And why is that cause for concern? That can affect effectiveness of policing. It can affect morale. And we are so proud of our leaders here in Florida that said that will not happen in this great state. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for making that clear, for signing this important legislation, but for standing strong in support of the men and women of law enforcement who have never wavered in serving Floridians, protecting Floridians, putting their safety behind the safety of Floridians, even as many criticized their noble profession. I can tell you that in Florida, not only do we shut down folks that want to defund the police, as today's signing will indicate, we superfund the police. And I am so proud to serve as the Attorney General of this amazing state. You can call it what you want. You can call it the free state of Florida. You can call it sweet Florida. I prefer to call it the most pro-law enforcement state in the nation. So thank you for being here today to share with us this historic bill signing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we had huge legislative support. And, I said earlier today, sometimes you have a great idea, and by the time it comes out of the legislature, sometimes the idea is a little less great at that point. But this is an example of a good idea that they really made much better. And I think that they deserve a lot of credit for it, for bringing additional ideas to the table. I think there was broad agreement that this was a great direction to go in, but the package that they produce, was really, really significant. So I want to thank both Senate President Simpson and Speaker Sprowls, and we'll have Senate President Simpson come up and then the Speaker.
And thank you, Governor. And it's always easy in the state of Florida to say we back the blue, because we do. But Sheriff, we also back the green. And and this bill did several things, and the governor did a great job of enumerating those things. Inside this bill, we made sure the sheriff controlled their budget. Right? They have flexibility now within their budget to move funds around that they would need to do their jobs here. And these things shouldn't be politicized. There's no reason to politicize those. We had strong support for this legislation. We do have several senators here today. Senator Stargell was our budget chair, Senator Albritton. Senator Hooper couldn't make it. He was the bill sponsor this year. He did a great job, but it was a team effort, and we had no better team than the House. Speaker Sprowls, his dad was in law enforcement, and we did make a good bill better, the combination of Senate ideas and House ideas here, and it was really an honor to be able to do this. The bonuses 2 years in a row are what they say we are. We don't only say we back the blue or the green, but we actually show it with our pocketbooks. Each year that was over $200 million. It was something we were proud to do. The scholarships for these families. We said, well, how are we going to recruit more, right? We had tools in another bill that recruited more law enforcement to the state of Florida. How are we going to take care of the ones we have here today? Scholarships for their children was a big tool in the toolbox for law enforcement to decide if they want to take their child to a different school than the one they're zoned to. And it was a burden that's now not going to be on their families. It was very important. Something that was very important this year, we worked on a lot with adoption and foster care. And the governor mentioned earlier, if you have a special needs child that needs to be adopted and you're law enforcement, you can get $25,000 up front to do that. And what does that money get spent on most of the time? For the needs of that child, right? You may need ramps, you may need special restroom accommodations, bedding, and things of that nature. That would take the burden off that family to be able to do that. $10,000 for non-special needs. Something that's very important. A few bills the governor mentioned I'd like to emphasize. In addition to these things, this year we extended DROP for 3 more years for our law enforcement officers. And by doing so, we will be able to keep more of our veteran law enforcement officers on call as we need them. That was something that was very important in the overall package. And the anti-riot bill last year, HB3, told the rest of the country what Florida thought of its law enforcement and how we don't say we back the blue, we actually do it. And again, I can't thank Speaker Sprowls enough for his work in this effort. He was, last year and this year, was tireless in his efforts. And the governor, you've done a great job leading us through this, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Speaker Chris Sprowls really dove into this and really did some great things, and so I just want to thank him as well.
Thank you, Governor. It's great to be with you all, and thank you for not letting any of the politicians speak after Sheriff Judd. I don't think any of us want to speak after Grady. It's great to be back here in Polk County with Governor DeSantis, the Attorney General, President Simpson, Sheriff Judd. You know, let's back up 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we were in this building, I think maybe the room next door, when Governor DeSantis announced the anti-riot bill, which ended up being House Bill 1, one of the first bills that we passed off the legislative floor. I think I hand-delivered it to you, Governor. But in that moment, it felt like the country was on fire. You had riots going on across the country. You had huge cities like New York City who cut hundreds of millions of dollars from their police budget. Los Angeles cut millions of dollars. Minneapolis, Seattle. Place was in chaos. There was a police precinct in Seattle that was given over to criminals, to rioters, to rapists. And Florida took a stand. And Governor DeSantis deserves the credit for being the tip of the spear in the country of the pushback on lawlessness, of coming here to Polk County, to this sheriff's office, to begin to tell the story that Florida is going to be the light in the country when it comes to law and order and when it comes to supporting our law enforcement. And you know, had it just been that, Governor, had it just been your statement in this platform with Sheriff Judd showing his props to the country about what a riot is to make sure people understood, that would have been enough. Maybe that would have been enough to show the nation this is where Florida stands, but it's not enough for this governor. It's not enough for this attorney general, this sheriff, or this legislature. You know, we passed that bill last session. I think we signed it. You think you signed it here, Governor? But then there was step 2, which is that was about protecting our streets. It was about protecting our families from lawlessness, our state from lawlessness. Now, how do we encourage not only our law enforcement officers, but how do we lift up their families, which is when you see House Bill 3. In addition, you know, the things the governor mentioned about, you know, recruitment, you know, bringing officers here. I loved watching Times Square during New Year's Eve where there's an ad for a law enforcement agency in Florida, basically to all the NYPD cops saying, wouldn't you rather be in Florida? Where we actually like you, where we like you and we lift you up. I can say that because I'm the kid of a New York City retired police officer who came to Florida and is sad having left a department where now his friends and colleagues and family members aren't valued the way that they are here in Florida. That's what this bill was about. It's about lifting people up, letting them know we want you to come here if you're a law enforcement officer. We want you to stay here if you're serving our families every day. You know, we talked about adoption and foster care. What could be a better life and a safer environment for a child who is in need of someone to look up to, a mentor, than to going into the home of a law enforcement officer? How do we encourage them in already what is difficult financially in taking the sacrifices that they do, protecting our families? How can we ask them to take on such an awesome responsibility? We have to incentivize it, and that's what this bill does. How do you do that when you might have to live close to a community which locks you into a particular school district? Maybe that school district isn't right for your kids. How do we give you an extra tool to alleviate the burden around the dinner table when you're having dinner at night where you don't have to worry about your school district? We make sure that your child has access to the Family Empowerment Scholarship so that your family, your children, don't have to be held behind in schools or fall behind or not achieve their dreams because you are protecting us so that our families could achieve their dreams. That's what this bill is about. And I want people to know, and I think the governor has said it best, that Florida is the most law enforcement friendly state in America. It is going to continue to stay that way, and I hope it rings from the mountaintops. Thank you, Governor.
Okay. Well, thanks. And it's, of course, always good to be here in Polk County with Sheriff Grady Judd. You know, I'll have people come up to me as I'm just travailing around and, you know, across the state, and they'll be like, I moved from wherever because of you and what you're doing in Florida or whatever. You know, you feel nice about that. But in Polk County, I will run into people that say, I moved to Polk County because of Grady Judd. And so, you know, I think he's a great ambassador for this part of the state. And clearly, you don't have to worry about if anyone is thinking about maybe breaking the law. Florida is not a place to do it at all, but you definitely don't want to be doing it in Polk County. So Grady Judd.
It's truly my honor to be here today on behalf of all the men and women of law enforcement across the state to thank the governor, to thank the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and the legislators for House Bill 3. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been in law enforcement my entire adult life, and I have never once seen a team like this. Never once have we had a legislative year that was this robust that said, look, we value the law enforcement officers that keep the state of Florida safe. As I move across the county, I tell folks, listen, if you're not safe and you don't feel safe, you don't thrive. If your family's not safe and they don't feel safe, they don't thrive. If your state's not safe and they don't feel safe, they don't thrive. We thrive in Florida because of this governor and this legislature. Now, as a result, they talk about the team. I call it the A-team.
Oh, gosh.
And that's what you see here with me today. This is the A-team that keeps Florida safe. I challenge people, and Governor, they say exactly that. I have people tell me every place I go. I was going to retire. We decided on Florida because of Governor DeSantis, and we came to Polk County because of Grady Judd. Folks, people want to feel safe, and they want to be safe, and nothing else matters. And who keeps them safe? The law enforcement officers and the partnership with the community. Now, Governor, I must tell you that, you know, they had a song, but nobody gave you a $5,000 put your name here, right? I mean, now you think about it. Washington's on the $1 bill. Lincoln's on the $5 bill. Well, the governor's on the $5,000 bill. That may not seem like a lot of money to some folks, but it's big money when you're trying to move across the country to the state of Florida. It's big money when you're trying to come where you can really enforce the law and protect the people. As I close today, I want to repeat what I tell people all across this country. You know, you think about it. When you look at Portland and Seattle and DC and Chicago, the law enforcement officers work hard there. It's the rule makers that creates the rules and the policies that allows that crazy criminal conduct. There is a reason good things happen in Florida, and it's because of this A-team and this governor, and there's a reason that it could be safe in other areas. But heck, if everybody worked as hard as our governor, then we'd just be average instead of the very best in the nation. So, Governor, on behalf of all the law enforcement officers, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah, of
very
course.
much.
All right, let's get it done. Let's get it done. All right, well, 1st of April, good way to start off the month here, so. You've already got one, don't
I
you?
don't want them. I mean, I do want them. I did not mean that. I was going to help you.
Oh, okay. So we're jumping the gun a little bit. All right, who wants one?
Sure. Thank you.
Anyone else?
You want to trust me to pass one back
Anyone
there?
else?
I don't think you trust me to pass it back there. I won't keep it.
All right, HB3. When we made this announcement in August that this is what we were trying for, there was buzz in law enforcement circles around the country saying, Governor DeSantis is handing out checks down in Florida. We got to figure. And I'd have to tell people, we will. We have to get it through the legislature. And so now I can say, in law, you know, you come. This is something that we'd be happy to show our appreciation and support you. Can't promise it's going to be a $5,000 bill with my picture on it, but the check will clear. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Governor. As you likely know, this week, Lighthouse lost its rating. A dozen more companies could soon lose their rating, according to Demotech. The Senate is willing to act. Senate Bill 1728 passed this session. So this question is for you, Governor, and you, Speaker. How many companies have to fail, and how high do rates have to go before you agree to take action on this issue on April 19th?
I'm ready. I will sign. I'm ready. You know, we did something in 2021 that's brought 2 companies in. It was not enough. and I said they needed to do more this year, and so put it on my desk, and it will be signed into law.
Speaker, would you agree to discuss this on April 19th?
Sure.
If you're talking about the special session, the proclamation is for redistricting. But let me be clear. You know, last year we passed one of the most expansive reforms to the insurance industry that's ever been done in Florida. One thing that happens is that you talk about this all the time is that it takes 18 months to see those reflected in the rates. We're about 6 months out from that. The other thing that nobody talks about when you talk about those companies that are going out of business is that those were companies who were allowed into Florida when our regulations were significantly lower and they were wildly undercapitalized. So they were stealing from Peter to pay Paul the entire time they've been in business in the state of Florida. So while I think it's instructive to realize that our residents are seeing rate increases, we have to open up the marketplace. I think using those companies is a bad example.
But the Speaker, the Senate is willing to act and the Governor is willing to act. I'm being told that you are the one that is not willing to act during this special session.
So I think you answered enough for you? Okay. So I would just say, you know, if we need to do anything to bring them back for this, you know, we're stand ready, willing, and able to do it, and we will work in any way we can to do it. I do think that, you know, it will happen because people want it to happen. Whether it can happen in April, I think, you know, if they work together, I'm happy to, you know, I'm happy to sign that for sure. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. This is a good one. I'm gonna bring this to my office. I like it. And I got to get this one. These are both really, really good. So good. Oh man. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you. Yeah.